Hello. Hello, and welcome back to the newest episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. As you know, my name is Nicole, and I'm so excited to be here today with Lucyann. So, Lucyann, take it away. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really grateful to be here. So, my name is Lucyann Lacazi-Baniel. I am a nurse coach and a somatic trauma informed coach. I am from sunny Florida, and I tend to work mainly with a lot of women to really help them to empower them and liberate them from their past and to discover their truth, use their voice, and heal from trauma, heal from anything that they have going on inside of their bodies and their nervous system. So I work really well with a lot of women to do that. I created a program called Empower Her, and it's a 3-month coaching program that I have had amazing results with, but it's very much based on my healing journey too.
All right, and that's where I was gonna lead to next. So, the name of the show is Overcome Yourself. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and if you had to overcome yourself to get to where you are right now?
Yes, I can. So, when I went back to school to advance my training as a nurse coach, I wanted to see what was really on the other side of this profession because it is fairly new. So, I decided to work with someone to work on my confidence. She had an amazing program. And throughout that process, it was a healing journey because I uncovered lots of layers and roots to my inner critics, the voices in my mind that were really holding me back in my life. And there was like this amazing process that I ended up going through. It was a journey, it was painful, but I knew that when I got to the other side of it, that it was something that I needed to share with the world. It almost like I went through an awakening, and it seemed as if I was almost unconscious, even though I was very much living in my life. It just wasn't like now I'm conscious, present, healed. And it is my mission now to share this with the world.
That is amazing. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more. Like, I want to know more about your story. Like, what did you overcome?
Okay. So I had a lot of trauma. I know I had a lot of trauma in my life, childhood trauma. And I didn't realize how much suppressed grief I held on to. There was also some numbing and distraction that I went through in my life with substance use. And that really, I have to say that that almost created somebody that was not my authentic version. It was like a version of me that this world created, because I was carrying so much fear and such immense self doubt. And I really wanted to have confidence and own my truth, but I didn't understand why I had such a self doubt and second guessing myself. So that was a big part of my healing journey and discovering how much I held on to. I had lots of anxiety. I felt lots of stress inside of my body. My heart would palpitate, even speaking into a room, people looking at me, and I didn't want to live that way anymore. So that was a big part of my healing journey.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
You said a few things that really caught my attention. When you said like growing your confidence, I've been quoting this book, The Confidence Code, um, where it talks about how us as women, have you read it?
No.
Okay, that's a great one to put on your list, The Confidence Code. I'm always talking about it. And
Okay.
they went and they interviewed a bunch of like really successful women, and they were like, well, what is it? Like are they still experiencing imposter syndrome? Like it's impossible, right? Like if you become a general in the army, you've conquered imposter syndrome. And they walked in there and she was battling through imposter syndrome. She's like, I'm lucky. And they were like, you're not lucky. Like, look at all the things you've done. And one of the big takeaways that I got from the book is that us as women, we don't need more competence. We go and we get a bunch of certifications and we go do continuing ed and we start stacking all of these things and it's like we're not good enough, we're not good enough, we're not good enough. But what we actually need to work on, like you said yourself, is our confidence. Because as women, we're already overqualified, we're already overly competent,
Yes.
and we need to step into that confidence.
Yes.
So I absolutely love that. Like, do you feel like that resonates with your
Oh,
story?
Yes, absolutely. So there was an inner critic of mine who was like high achiever, constantly
Yeah.
seeking certifications for validation. But
Yeah.
throughout this healing journey, I did a lot of inner child work and I validated parts of myself as a child, as a teenager, my feelings. And I reparented myself and I learned that I am enough just as I am. And I looked at my story, the resilience in my story, and how much I've overcome throughout my life. And that's what really gave me that intrinsic confidence. Someone can have a credential, someone can have a license, but I think it's the amount of work that you put into something and how you embody that work as you are helping other people and serving in this world.
Yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love.
Thank you.
Yes. There was another point that I was going to bring up and it went away, but I'm sure it'll come back as we're talking.
Yeah.
I also remember that you said like peeling back the layers, right? Especially in this entrepreneurship journey, we get to face ourselves, like really all the things, right? Because it's really hard to ask for your worth and be like, "Hey, pay me $5,000." If deep down inside you don't believe that you're even worth that, right? If you don't
Yes.
have the self-worth, if you don't have the self-confidence. And so a lot of these things that these coaches are telling us to do, charge your worth, make more posts, do all of these things, but it comes from that that lack of confidence, right? Where and it's been kind of beaten into us since we were little,
Yes.
like, oh, don't
Since
climb
you
on
were
the
young.
tree, like, don't jump too high, like, make sure your legs are crossed, don't curse. Like,
Yes.
there's all of these parameters, right? And so as we are growing in our journey, like these layers, we start peeling them back. And the best or the worst part, I don't know, is that it's usually the same lesson at a different level. Right? And
Yes.
these same lessons keep coming up. What do you think about that? Is that paralleled in your journey as well?
Oh, I absolutely. So, I want to touch on a little bit of imposter syndrome too, because I think all of us have been through some degree of trauma throughout our lives. And
Yes.
what ends up happening when we go through these traumas is we don't really process them right away. And our body actually remembers how we felt. So I love when you said, like we want to have this intrinsic confidence but what you're putting out into the world, it's like a charge for charge this is what you're worth. But unless you've gotten to like the root cause or the limiting belief, if we know what that really is, then that is really hard for us to adapt that modality of just putting ourselves out there if we don't actually deeply down believe this, locate the source of where this came from, and like face things head on to heal that part of us and reframe it and look at what we actually have sustained and what we have completed in our lives. That's what gives you that like magnetic energy that attracts how you can serve people in this world, how people can trust you in this world, that you are showing up and you know exactly what you've been through. Your story is yours, but you can sympathize with other people and in their journey and on their walk. So I think there's a lot that parallels, as you mentioned. Does
Yes,
that answer your
absolutely.
question?
And
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
And what it made me think of is I saw a video where someone was explaining that when like a deer, like if a deer is being hunted and they're running away from a predator, right? And they get away from that predator once that guy is gone and they're safe, one of the things that they do is they start shaking and they
Yes.
shake and they shake all of the fear out of their body because they're like, I got to get rid of this adrenaline, right? Like, we
Mhm.
don't know what they're thinking, but I'm personifying, right? But they're getting rid of all of that excess energy. And I think that's a really great lesson for us when we get stressed out. What do we tend to do? cover ourselves, we might get in the
Yes.
bed, right? And instead, what if we moved? What if we shook it out and got rid of that energy? What if we switched and said, I'm not anxious, I'm excited. I'm
And
excited because there's something new coming. Yes.
yes.
Right, because they're the same emotion. We just label them differently, but we feel the same things, right? We feel our heart
Yes.
is palpitating, our breath, we start breathing
Hmm.
different, like we get excited, like there's adrenaline, and they're both the same, but we label them differently, so we feel them differently.
Yes.
Um, Yes, and the other thing that the thought that I told you that I came back, um you mentioned that there was like numbing the substances, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that I've been talking about a lot has been the difference between joy and happiness, right? Because for a long time I was chasing happiness.
Mhm.
And chasing happiness, right, is because we're trying to numb these things because we don't want to have to deal with them because they're big and they're heavy and they're scary and we got to feel things. And so we're
Yes.
chasing happiness, right? But one of the things I learned is that we can't be happy all the time. Like it's impossible for us because happiness is a chemical reaction, right? And so
Mhm.
something good happens, you get some chemicals that go, I'm not even talking about drugs yet, but like in your own
Yeah.
body you get happy and
Yeah.
then you get like the oxytocin, you get, like the dopamine, you get the serotonin, all of that stuff changes up, and then you're like, oh, I'm happy. But it's physically impossible to maintain that state all the time because then like it it
Yes.
it just becomes numb, right? And so that's where we
Yes.
can dive into looking for happiness in the wrong places because we're looking for that hit, and then what happens when it goes
Mhm.
away? What I found is learning to live in joy. So my big thing is practicing gratitude so you can learn to live in joy, right? So that you're
Love
not
that.
sad, so that you're not anxious, right? Because
Yeah.
our job is to enjoy this journey. Like, it's all
Yes.
we got is the journey. There is no destination, right? All right, so take it away. Tell me your thoughts on everything I just said.
So, yes, actually, I love that you brought that up. It's true. I feel happiness is something that we can chase, but joy is actually it's an inner peace that we can have. And I have found the way that I actually hang on to joy is by being present. And I'm
Mhm.
spiritual. So, connecting to God in presence is what brings me joy. And it's actually what anchored me into like my strengths. To remember, like, yes, you can have joy. You don't always have to I would say like people please and put on a smile and constantly put your needs on the back burner. You can still have joy in your life and you don't have to appear to be happy all the time. Like there's this like authentic expression you can have about yourself. But I think it's good to know that you can like navigate in between both the joy and the happiness. But yes, like being present is a very big thing for me. And that's what I really feel helped me to understand what joy really feels like inside of my body.
Yes. As someone who's neurodivergent, I know there's been times where I'm here and I feel like my life is happening somewhere else, and it's a very strange feeling. But that's one of those things that I had to reel in, right? And I feel like it's not happening. There's nowhere else. Like it's here, it's right now.
Yeah.
And so like telling myself you are safe, right? Like if I'm starting to feel anxious, you are safe, you are loved, you are okay. Like, and bringing myself back to the present, thinking of things that I'm grateful for. So that's amazing. I love
I
that we're
love
like
that
on
you
this
do
vibe.
that. Yes, I love that you do that. Okay, one of the things that I teach my clients is when you are feeling triggered in your body or you're feeling like someone is verbally attacking you or you just feel like reactive and you're not understanding why, I tell my clients to pause and to breathe deep breaths. I always tell them to put their hands on their hearts, close their eyes if they can, and ask themselves, what is it that I need in this moment? Because a lot of the times, women, especially, we don't tend to ask ourselves what we need in this moment. We don't realize that we can actually resource ourselves to meet those needs. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
that's a big thing. I love to like presence, and that really helps someone drop into presence to calm their nervous system, to feel safe again, and feel collective to go back to whatever situation that they were in, but being more present.
Yes, absolutely. Um, Something that what you just said reminded me, my coach always tells us, you you weigh the options with your mind, but you make the decision with your body. So I think it's really important that you said to put your hand on your heart. My nails are disgusting, don't look at them. But when you said put your hand on your heart, um, and really like listen to yourself, right? Because there's gonna be moments where you feel something, and we have to learn to quiet things down so we can really hear ourselves again, right? Because like the universe is always whispering to us, but we
Hmm.
have to quiet our minds down enough that we can hear, but we can get those like those downloads, right? Like you get inspiration, you get at ideas that come from the universe, but you have to be still enough, quiet enough that you
Yeah.
can hear it.
Yes, you do.
I love
You
that
know,
so
when
much.
we are so stressed out, there's so much inflammation, and it's hard to think. You know, ever some ever had someone say like, "I have brain fog. I can't remember. I can't." You know, when you are in that like panic state or in that fear state, like that's exactly why. You know, there's lots of
Mhm.
inflammation. You know, you don't have really clear, concise thoughts. There's no clarity there, and that's where a lot of women end up feeling like a lot of self doubt in their feelings, emotions, if
Yes.
what they remember is right. There's a
Mhm.
lot that goes into the body too. So I love that you're bringing up like really being connected to your body and knowing what's going on.
Yes. Um, it just left again. Dang it, I had a really good thought. What was I gonna say? Oh, okay. I was gonna say between, okay, so for some of us that are used to living in fight or flight. Like I spent
Mhm.
years, like, and that's really bad
Yeah,
for you. Like the cortisol in your body, like that's why we have belly fat, right? Like it just
yeah,
comes out and then you look pregnant and you're like, it's just, no, it's cortisol.
yes, yes,
Right. And so like these things take effect. So what I know is that the opposite of fight or flight is to have our bodies in rest and digest so that we
yes,
can not not be like, oh my god, there's a tiger chasing me. So what
yes,
tips do you have for us, like the firstborn recovering gifted women, like the ADHD, like the ones that are out there, they're building businesses, like the norm isn't working for them and they are realizing I don't want to live in fight or flight anymore. What is like some three tips that you have for us to help us, because we have to learn to live and rest and digest, right? Like this, these are
yes,
patterns, these are habits, these
yes.
are things that come up. So, what can you tell us about learning to live in rest and digest?
Okay, so if we want to like really bring our bodies down into that rest and digest place, we really have to figure out what works for us. So that means trying various modalities. So some of the things that I recommend, you talked about moving and shaking things off. Okay, so if we are in fight or flight, we have to figure out what's going to help us, come down a little bit from that fight or flight state, whether it be, as simple as this may sound, like texting someone, but maybe we're not able to really handle a conversation at that time. So it's really trying out different modalities. You can try moving around, shaking things out, dancing. I know when we're in fight or flight, we really don't want to dance, but even moving around and going for a walk actually mobilizes all of those emotions. And it can actually
Put on
have
some
a
rock.
very, yes, something. It can help you calm down. I highly recommend breathing, as I know that that has been something huge for me, specifically box breathing, and that's helped a ton of my clients. And the other thing I recommend is mindfulness practices. So in the beginning, when I first started this journey, mindfulness practices was very new for me. It took me a long time to understand how to sit in the stillness and the quiet and not feel awkward about it. But as I continued to show up and practice it, eventually I started to see the benefits of it. And these are just a couple of things I can think offhand that women can do to start practicing and seeing if this works for them.
That is so important. And something else that you just made me remember. I read this article that was talking about how men, when they have hobbies, their hobbies leave they leave the house and they go do things that are totally unrelated to work or anything. But us as ladies, when we have hobbies, we take up hobbies that are related to running our households.
Yeah.
So like I like cleaning, I like baking, I like sewing. You don't like doing any of those things. You just feel a little bit less guilty about doing them because they're adding to the productivity, right?
Right.
And so it's so important for us to let go of those things and even find hobbies like going for a walk, like disconnect from your house, like your house is not gonna fall apart.
Yes. Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But
It's
being able to disconnect, yeah. I
yeah,
just thought,
that's a
well, what if
big
you've got like little kids,
I
like
know.
boys, like three
I
boys?
know.
That might not work.
It's so
But it probably
interesting.
won't fall down.
Yeah, there's a lot of guilt that we take on and a lot of shame if we don't feel like we are meeting these certain standards of our boxes. But the reality is, yes, if I were to ask someone, like a woman, what is it that you like to do? I mean, most of the time when they come to me, they really don't know what they like to do outside of how their identities have molded them. And not to say that there's no judgment. This is just what happens, right? When we're in the
Mhm.
home, if we have kids, we just kind of adapt to our roles inside of the home. But I love when I get to that question with women because it makes them think. So it's a process of having fun and rediscovering parts of you. Like if you feel like you left part of you behind, if you feel like something's missing from your life, I highly suggest to ask yourself that question. What do I like to do? What brings me joy? What makes me feel happy? What actually helps me calm down? Like, pay attention to those things.
I have one. So one of the things that I ask my clients is, what did you gravitate to as a child?
Yes,
Because a
yes.
lot of times we block it out now, but there's things you did when you were a kid that you would love to be doing now, whether it was coloring or, playing
Mhm.
with some cars or whatever it was, and you just don't remember because you're not allowed to, but nobody's,
Yeah.
you're the one that put that rule, right?
I love that you brought that up, Nicole. Okay, so one couple of things I do throughout my program. I do reflective journaling. So I have clients write with their non-dominant hand to bring up that inner
Mhm.
child. Okay. And then they're like, I used to color, I used to write when I was younger and I loved this. And they actually draw a picture. The other thing I bring in is some somatic dance, but it's like free movement. So again, it's like play. Remember what you did as a kid, play, what brought you happiness and joy. And if we go back to those things, like we can definitely get in touch with that again.
Yes. And I recently learned, and I want your opinion on this, as a nurse coach, that play is the opposite of trauma. So like it sounds like it's like even more important for us. Like since we started this conversation talking about how we all have some kind of trauma. So I
Yeah.
think it's so important that we get out there and learn to play because some of us feel weird and that's
Yes.
because of our trauma.
Yes. I don't know if you've ever heard anyone say, like, I don't feel like I'm fun anymore. Like as you get older, like I don't feel like I'm fun anymore. But what think about what do we do that brings us joy and what brings us like what do we do that we find fun? Yes, like you
Mhm.
said, we have our hobbies in the house, but what do we actually find fun anymore as we get older and we transition in life? So I love, love, love having women to rediscover this parts about them. And you can actually see as they go through the program with me, I see them, their energy is different. They're like embodying this happiness and this joy, and they're sending me updates. And it's just a really like amazing experience to witness their growth and to see them living again and feeling joy and happiness.
Yes, I love that. Oh my God, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
as we're coming up to the end of the episode, did you want to let everyone know how they can connect with you? Do you have any free gifts for our audience, maybe?
Sure, yes, I would love to. So, yes, you can connect with me on Facebook. You can find me by my full name. So it's Lucyann Lacazi-Baniel. Do you want me to spell that out?
Well, that's going to be down in the show notes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yes, so
Yeah,
or
so you
wherever
can
you're
find
watching
me.
this in the comments or in the show notes.
Okay. You can also find me on Instagram at Deep Awakening Wellness. That is the name of my company. And anyone who does reach out to me, I would be more than happy to offer a free clarity call to give you some space to see what's on your heart and to see if there's a powerful takeaway you can have from a clarity call with me.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Yes,
Um,
thank you
so
so much.
yes. So any final tips for our audience before we sign off here?
Yep. So, final tips I would say if you feel that there is a part of you that you're looking to discover again. If you feel that you are battling with recovering from any type of narcissistic abuse or emotional trauma, childhood trauma, I highly recommend that one, that you would really just set aside some time for yourself to put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, what is it that you need? And if you need support, to seek support. And it can be, I would love to hold space for you, but to just know where your resources are, to not keep things inside, and don't suppress emotions, because that can lead to severe anxiety. It can cause chronic pain in your body. And there's another way to live with purpose and to feel joy throughout your life.
Yes. Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lucyann. This has been absolutely amazing. And we will catch you guys on the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.